If a masked lunatic started hacking up all the counselors at your backwoods conversion camp, what would you do? They mostly come out at night, mostly. And there's no telling who it could be, or who's next on the chopping block. Without any cell service, Wi-Fi, or satellite phone, we'll be forced to take matters into our own hands if we want to make it out alive. And to make matters worse, Ethan Hawke is here. Good thing marksmanship is still a part of the curriculum. I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the secret slasher in They Them. An unnamed motorist makes her way through a dark forest at night, only to be stopped dead in her tracks by a sudden blowout. Oh yeah, don't even bother pulling off on the shoulder. This looks like a perfectly safe place to change a tire. Of course, judging by the spike traps on the road, I'd say getting run over is the least of her concerns. Right about now is when you start realizing how completely you are for not taking that $100 CCW course a few weeks ago. Then again, no amount of firepower in the world is gonna save you if you're too stupid to realize this is an ambush. What, do you think those pokey boys just fell out of the sky? Get back in your car and stomp on the gas. You can dial 911 while you limp along on the rims. Just be sure to check the backseat first. What am I saying? We can't possibly take off without a classic misdirection jump scare. Go ahead and stare straight at the unknown entity rustling away in the bushes. I'm sure your cell phone's 50 candela flashlight is really gonna make the bad guy think twice. Fortunately, it's just some bad CGI coming to end it all on the asphalt. Jesus, lady, act like you've never seen a poorly animated deer before. Plus, I highly doubt Bambi's in on it, although he is doing a pretty good job of distracting you from the masked murderer lurking right behind you. Well, that was fun. Time to leave? Wait, you're gonna breathe a sigh of relief with nothing but a thin pane of glass between you and whoever set those caltrops back there. Does a bloodthirsty psychopath really have to flash their hatchet in your rear windshield before you can pull a Ralph Wiggum?
I'm in danger!
Right you are, you little meatball. Time to turn this thing over and leave Lizzie Borden in the dust. Hell, it never should have been off in the first place. After all, you know this hunk of junk ain't starting when you need it, which is why this is going to happen. Let that be a lesson to all you wage cage owners out there. This is exactly what happens when you don't spring for the Toyota. All that money you saved on the CRV isn't gonna keep your skull in one piece when you're broken down just outside of Haddonfield. As for our amateur surgeon, could you have given this lady any more opportunities to get away? Seriously, what was the point of letting yourself get lit up by the brake lights before you struck? For all you knew, she kept a Magnum Research BFR in the glove box for just such an occasion. Not to mention the completely wasted opportunity when she was gazing at the wildlife out in the middle of the road. Now, instead of just hiding a body, you have to hide an entire compact SUV full of evidence to keep this little disappearing act from turning into a murder investigation. All in all, I'd give this brutal slaying a 2 out of 10. You should probably just tell your cellmate you went down for screenshotting an NFT. Sometime later, Jordan and company arrive at Whistler Camp for a transformative experience. And right off the bat, things are not looking good.
I'm gonna need you to hand over all your cell phones and computers. This is a safe space for everyone.
Pro tip, whenever someone tells you it's a safe space, it's not. Especially when that someone is the part-time magician himself. Gotta admit, he's really scaled up his operation. Instead of painstakingly rounding up fresh brats through suburb safaris, they get shipped in by the busload from their disowning parents before voluntarily surrendering their sole means of communication. Sure, there's a paper trail, but accidents happen all the time. And who's to say a few of them didn't wander off into the middle of the night, only to become hopelessly lost in the countless acres of dense forest surrounding the camp. Of course, for the time being, he'll have to throw on the kid gloves until it's time to start picking them off one by one. Sure wish he'd hurry up on that though. All this coddling, eggshell walking, and pseudo-sensitivity is making me sick. Like I said, never trust a safe space, and never trust someone who is overly caring or generally nice to you. Real people are paranoid, selfish, and slightly dishonest. Honestly, I think I prefer the more direct approach from his van life days. Less time listening to feelings, and more time spent whipping on the naughty boys. Just feels more homely. Can you feel it? They're watching. Who gives a shit though. You have nothing to hide. It's definitely not like you're the leader of the resistance or really anyone of importance. What matters is your Netflix and totally legit torrenting operations remain undisrupted. This is where this video's sponsor, Atlas VPN, slams its meat on your table. Want to watch Rick and Morty on Netflix, but you're a lowly American? Pop over to the UK. Want to watch Batman beat Heath Ledger's face in? Click Germany and you're in. Django Unchained. Click basically anywhere that's not the USA. Can't access Friends or other legendary shows on your Netflix while abroad? Couple clicks and you're in. This works if you're not American too. Even though you're a gray man, if that's what you want to call it, Atlas VPN will keep your Googling private and give you the real unfiltered, unbiased search results without Big Bro tracking your activity. You get unlimited protected devices, 4K fast streaming, ad blocker, email protection, WireGuard protocol, and more for a measly $1.70 a month. Now you can get Atlas VPN Premium for just $1.70 per month, plus 6 months of extra with a 30-day money-back guarantee. It's the best Atlas VPN offer of the year, so be quick and get your Black Friday deal by clicking the link in the video description below. It's a limited time offer. After dividing up the not-so-happy campers in a way that's sure to start a war in the comments section, the gang heads off to their assigned cabins just in time to stroll past the leering old handyman. Good thing Little Miss Haircut is on the scene to set him straight.
Wrong team, Wad.
Nice work, Red. That'll teach the help to look up from his thankless servitude for even a second. For real, how are we, the audience, supposed to become emotionally invested in you people?
What do you mean, you people?
And actually care about your inevitable gruesome deaths when you so callously peep shame the lowly janitor. Here he is, busting his hump to keep the porcelain spick and span for your condescending ass. And you can't even let him enjoy a little complimentary ogling on a hot summer's day. Like the sign says coming into this dump, respect, renew, reload. I'm not sure where I was going with that, but leave the old creeper alone, alright? Besides, there's the implication. You're out in the middle of nowhere. Backup's God knows how far away, and you're stuck here with this strange man that knows this land and a pair of hedge clippers like the back of his well-calloused hands. Might be wise to pick your battles. Of course, if that's not good enough for you, other relevant honorable mentions of sage advice include such classics as don't start none, won't be none, and don't let your mouth write checks your hypotonic ass can't cash. And yet, here you are, landing yourself the #1 spot on his fecal roster from day one. Don't worry though, Tallahassee's just gonna take a little off the top. The first full day of fun starts off rather tame with basic camp activities like obstacle courses and paracord bracelets. However, later that night, things take a dark turn. The teens are dragged out of bed by their counselors for a casual blindfolded handcuff hike through the pitch black forest. Oh, but don't worry, it's all part of the MC's plan.
Each pair head off in a different direction, and we will see you in the morning.
Wait, so your plan to turn these teenagers straight is to shackle them up to members of the same sex and leave them unsupervised in the dark for many consecutive hours? Can't see how this could potentially backfire on you in any way. If I had to guess, I'd say this is when the devil mask comes out. I mean, he can't seriously be doing this for their own good, right? Sure, a couple hours stumbling around in the woods might build a little character, but after a full night of sleep deprivation, things could start to get a little dangerous, especially chained together like that. Just imagine if one of them trips and impales themselves on a jagged tree branch a la Tucker and Dale. The other would probably have to saw through the wrist with their shoestrings just to make it back for breakfast. Hazards aside, this is still a pretty far cry from the ritualistic waterboarding and Bible verse recitation I'd expect from a place like this. Although, I can't exactly speak from experience on that. And then there's all the bizarre iconography adorning the interior walls and all the buildings. The idiomatic odd duck being singled out and devoured by physically superior birds of prey. I mean, just think about it. Hawks, Ethan Hawke. Need I say more? Nah, I'm sure there's nothing to read into there. But why don't we? Just for fun. Once prey is spotted, the great-footed hawk may continue to soar for a little while because this stresses out the animals below. At this point, the hawk will swoop down and latch onto the prey with its sharp talons, and it's all over for the animal that is about to become a meal for the hawk. It is a cleanly bird in respect to feeding. No sooner is the prey dead than the falcon turns its belly upward and begins to pluck it with its bill, which he does very expertly, holding it meantime quite fast in his talons. And as soon as a portion is cleared of feathers, tears the flesh in large pieces and swallows it with great avidity. If it is a large bird, he leaves the refused parts, but if small, swallows the whole in pieces. See, nothing to worry about, just like the masked and hooded figure eerily watching them from the distant shadows.
Who is that?
Finally, we can start piling up the bodies. And here I thought this would be one of those slow burn affairs where nothing even remotely interesting happens until the last 20 minutes. As for our campers, calling out the creepers' poor attempt at a sneak check is probably a good idea. Having lost the element of surprise, it's possible he'll move on to more oblivious victims. Then again, it could also work to fast track our demise by forcing him to make a move before we can alert the others. Either way, we should improvise some weapons using fallen branches or rocks and quietly make our way to a new hiding spot. Of course, being handcuffed together like that more than nullifies our numbers advantage. And that's assuming there's only one psycho out here to begin with. Unfortunately, given the mysterious stranger seems to be wearing one of the same robes as everyone else, Jordan and Alexandra probably just assume he was part of the program. After all, nothing encourages unit cohesion quite like the thought of being ruthlessly hunted down by a serial killer with no way of calling for help. In any case, maybe we'll find out more after we bring this up with everyone else first thing in the morning. Except no, we won't, because neither of them bothers to say a thing about it ever again. For real, what the French toast? There's literally no reason for you not to bring it up. The Nazgul already knows you spotted him, so even if it's someone on the inside, revealing to the group what you saw the night before is not gonna make you any more of a target than you already are right now. Best case scenario, it was just old Balthazar out making sure no one got to second base. Worst case scenario, there's a hostile intruder lurking somewhere on the property. I'd say it's well worth sounding like a crazy person to ask that question. Sometime later, Jordan drops by the lodge for their mandatory visit with the camp shrink, and by the looks of the last guy, this is where things start living up to our expectations.
This thing you invented, it's a fake. They're never gonna love you.
Easy, Dr. Phil. You want to change them into a woman, not a corpse. This place is starting to make a lot more sense. Must be some kind of bad cop, worse cop game that they're playing. That said, it's refreshing to get some brutal honesty from a deeply manipulative therapist that really understands you, if not a bit too well. It's almost like she's concocted a laser-guided emotional attack based on personal details obtained by rifling through your belongings while you were out enjoying the death march. And judging by the tight lips and tongue swallowing, I'd say it worked exactly as planned. The good news is that their intentions and methods are fairly overt, and it doesn't seem like they'll be using shock therapy, at least not yet. Given how renowned for success this conversion camp is, along with the escalating therapeutic and pair bonding techniques, it's likely they'll employ incrementally more intense phases, should the softer techniques fail to produce the desired outcome. In that case, it'd probably be best to start acting like we're making progress, to spare ourselves the more medieval means of behavior modification. That or make like a tree and beat it in the middle of the night. Of course, with a potential mass murdering psychopath on the loose, it might be better to stick with the devil you do see, right? Right? Well, cue the halfway mark of this show. After strengthening their resolve with a brief song and dance number, Jordan strolls completely unimpeded into the main office, where they almost immediately find a treasure trove of incriminating evidence sitting in the second unlocked drawer they open. Jesus Christ, maybe I spoke too soon on the shock treatment. Then again, you'd think they'd keep the pile of photographs depicting years of vicious abuse under lock and key, or at the very least, put them in something that didn't automatically scream "search me" to the first person that found it. Seems a little too easy if you ask me. Maybe, just maybe, the plan was to use this material to show how far things come in the world of conversion therapy since the bad old days. Nah, who am I kidding? This is clearly Training Day's special for when the well runs dry. Why else would it be within a single arm's reach of the big comfy chair? Just then, camp nurse Molly barges in and catches Jordan red-handed, only to immediately change her tone at the sight of the little horror collage sprawled out on the desk. Evidently, she had no idea things were this bad, or so she claims. Although that's not exactly the look of shock and disgust I'd expect from someone who's never seen these before. Regardless, Jordan makes her promise she'll help protect them when the chips are down before dramatically reversing course and walking out on a one-liner.
Now you have to help all of us. Well, he has no idea who he's hunting this time.
I'm getting mixed signals here. Are you a helpless child in need of an adult, or Jason Bourne? Here's an idea. How about, instead of blindly trusting a complete stranger to piss away her career for you after a 2-minute conversation, you pocket those pictures and bring them back to your bunkmates. Sticking around to play strong silent type is only putting everyone else at risk, and once they see what potentially lies in store for them, a long walk through a dark forest will probably seem a lot better by comparison. Besides, if this rando were really committed to helping us survive, you'd think she'd at least offer us a ride back to town. Oh, that's right. We can't possibly leave until after we're inevitably caught snooping around and forced to break free from Ethan Hawke's concrete F-shack. Of course, as poorly secured as everything else is around here, we could probably walk right into his cabin and smother him and his wife in their sleep without anyone even noticing. I guess they blew the security budget wiring up the women's showers. Hey, gotta keep any sickos among us from sneaking a peek somehow, and I know just the man for the job. Sure is kind of old Balthazar to spend his nights making sure these nice young ladies can shower without the fear of prying eyes. Now, if only he had someone else watching his back, or, you know, some kind of mechanical device used to seal off points of entry from potential intruders. Unfortunately, this whole episode must take place in a parallel universe where no such technology exists. As wouldn't you know it, in walks the masked maniac to give the old man more than just an eyeful. Smashing performance. Looks like our killer learned a thing or two from his previous mistakes. I'll give this one a 6 out of 10. Would have scored higher, but it's gonna be a chore to dispose of the body and clean up the mess to keep the other potential victims from raising the alarm. Not to mention the fact that there's only like 6 people that work here. I think they're probably gonna notice 17% of their staff suddenly going missing. The next day, Hawkman rallies the troops for a little group therapy out at the shooting range. After dispensing some Ruger 1022s and belching up a canned sermon that mentions all about gun safety, he lets the teens loose with fully semi-automatics on the row of comically oversized bullseye. Naturally, Jordan proves to be totally amazing at this because of course they are. However, it turns out the boss man didn't drag everyone out here to punch holes in paper squares. The way he sees it, the only way to make a man out of someone is by staring straight into the eyes of a cancer-ridden old hound dog while you blow its brains out. And apparently, he thinks young Toby's got what it takes. And if he doesn't,
Or Zane is gonna take that sledgehammer, and he's gonna break one of his legs.
oh, that's hardly sporting, although it would make him a lot easier to hit. For real, just because the old pup is sick doesn't mean you can waste him with a 22. You need a shotgun. To clarify, a 22 could certainly do it, but such a small and anemic cartridge pretty much cuts your margin for error down to 0. Even an inexperienced shooter would likely have to put multiple rounds into Sparky's skull to finally make the yelping stop. Ultimately, it doesn't matter because old Zaitsev makes the shot on Toby's behalf, and then takes aim at the man who gave the order. Yeah, probably wasn't such a good idea to let all the other kids keep their rifles while you coerce one of their friends into shooting a dog against his will. Although threatening the ringleader while one of his goons could easily dome slice you isn't exactly a 200 IQ play either. Firearms 101 dictates you should never aim at something you don't wish to destroy. Not only because you might kill somebody by accident, but also because people tend to get really pissed off when you point guns at them. If I were Jordan, I'd be planning to GTFO immediately, cause you gotta believe some form of retaliation is right around the corner. As for the rest of the gang, this whole standoff situation would be the perfect opportunity to discreetly swipe a few cartridges off each one of the rifles and squirrel them away for later. After all, they just might come in handy if things continue to escalate. Later that evening, Jordan convenes a meeting with Alexandra and Toby to discuss making a break for it.
We're gonna take their bus tomorrow morning early, before everyone else is awake.
Hey, great idea. It's almost like you should have done this before you were forced to dose a dog and out yourself as a member of the Whistler Camp Resistance. There's just one problem. Actually, there's like 5. 1, you have no idea where the keys are kept. 2, they're going to be expecting some kind of trouble out of Jordan in particular after she threatened to shoot old Ethan in the face. 3, a school bus firing up at 4 a.m. is hardly subtle. 4, you'll be criminally charged for taking it. And 5, trying to move every single person out of the barracks and into a bus without being noticed is going to be impossible. Besides, there's no telling who among them might be Stockholm syndromed to the point that they rat us all out, or even a wolf in sheep's clothing planted to watch us from the inside. A job like this requires a smaller team that'll be harder to notice, kind of like the three of us sitting here right now. However, instead of waiting until morning, we should load up on warm clothing and leave as soon as possible. The longer we stick around, the more likely we are to have accidentally, brutally shot ourselves out on the firing range. We can come back for the others after we make it to town with the photographs and expose the systematic abuse to law enforcement. The huddle adjourns with everyone agreeing to play it cool until it's time to go. Unfortunately, it seems no one was able to relay this message to Stu and Gabriel. Now, imagine you've been sent to a camp that uses animal sacrifice as a means of altering one's romantic inclinations. What about that notion makes you think it's a good time to do the nasty? Oh, well, what Ethan doesn't know won't hurt him, right? Yeah, about that.
Freeze!
What is this?
I mean, come on. You had to see this coming. Of course they're going to test you with temptations along the way. How else could they prove their brainwashing was going to take? One thing's for sure, we'd better find a way past Stretch pronto, because I highly doubt they're going to let us walk away with nothing but the pain of betrayal to get the point across. Oh, or instead you could just walk right along with them into the other room like they aren't about to brutally torture you for breaking their conditioning. I sure hope he brought something to bite down on. Yes, nothing like a car battery to jumpstart the learning process. Remember when the grabber called this pit a safe space? Boy, did he really pull the wool over your eyes. Following Stu's little adjustment, the counselors carry his unconscious body to the infirmary, where Nurse Molly immediately hands in a resignation over the shocking turn of events. She tells the boss she's going to head back to town and turn him into the authorities, but evidently she has no idea who she's messing with.
I am a man of respect here. I'm on the goddamn Chamber of Commerce.
He must have access to hundreds of lobbying dollars. Cool story, bro. No one cares about your VIP status out in bumf Egypt. Ever hear of the state police? What about the internet? Face it, Hamlet, you ain't that guy. As for Miss Molly, why on earth would you reveal your plan to rat them out to the cops? Dude literally just rigged a teenager up like a potato clock. What do you think he's willing to do to you? You should have just kept quiet and played along until you found an opportunity to slip away. Now he's gonna be cleaning house in anticipation of a full-blown police investigation. And that probably involves Stu dissolving away in an oil drum somewhere. And speaking of unhinged psychopaths, I wonder where our serial killer got off to. Well, judging by the wide open bedroom door leading to Zane and Sarah's snuggle sesh, I think I have a pretty good idea of where he's going to be. Jesus Christ, who the hell just does it with a door open like total barbarians? Even if locks are against your religion or whatever, at least forcing an intruder to creak open a door could buy you enough time to go for the Glock on your nightstand. Given that's a twofer, I'm inclined to bump old Murdering Murphy's score up to a 7.5. Gotta give points for styling, forcing the lovers to watch each other get brutally hacked to death. That said, he did use an axe once already, and variety truly is the spice of life. Not to mention all the screaming. The last thing you need is to wind up cornered in a cabin with Sergeant Jake Roenick beating on the door. It turns out the masked magician isn't done yet. For his next trick, he stops by the lake to catch Gabriel enjoying a midnight float, but instead of drowning him right there on the spot, he knocks the mark unconscious and lugs him back to the Stabbin' cabin for a little poetic justice. Kevin McAllister would be proud. Gotta say, this one cranks it up to 11. All that brutal anticipation leading up to the switch throw really adds to that chef's kiss. Sure, there was a chance of getting spotted while lugging the dude's unconscious body away from the lake, but the finished product was well worth the risk if you ask me. The bar's set pretty high at this point, and even with so many potential subjects left to immortalize, it's going to be quite a feat to top that last one. Of course, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Like any true artist, the killer is compelled to share his creations with the world, arranging them in the mess hall to capture the candid reactions of passerbys, and just in time for a couple campers to drop in for a midnight snack. Sadly, it seems the magnificence of his work is lost on these Philistines. Instead of marveling at the spectacle laid out before them, they shriek out in terror and draw the rest of the camp, who react to this discovery by immediately splitting up in a bunch of different directions. Seriously, Ethan goes for the buses, his wife Cora goes for the rifle, rifles, and you'll never guess where they send the campers.
Everyone, go get some warm clothes on and meet back here, fast as you can.
There's a free-roaming serial killer out hacking up and electrocuting people, and your bright idea is to send the unarmed children by themselves to go put on cardigans. Oh, and meanwhile, you'll be doing what exactly? Good God, this chick should have been fired years ago. I shouldn't even have to spell this out, but what the hell. We should all head to the main office and hunker down while the remaining counselors strap up with the rimfires, at which point we all head straight to the buses in GTFO. As for the winter wear, get tough. There's a maniac running around mutilating people. I think you can handle the brisk bus ride back in your skivvies. It's not exactly rocket surgery, people. Well, let's see how this disaster of a plan falls apart, starting with Cora, since her mission involves firearms. She actually managed to find them without getting butchered, except they seem to be sealed away behind some kind of witchcraft. Clearly, we're dealing with dark forces beyond all comprehension. How about you grab one of those table lamps and smash your way through the glass? You know, like literally anyone else could do at a moment's notice. Cabinets like this just keep honest people honest. And besides, since when do you people keep important items under lock and key? Boy, it sure would suck if the killer showed up while you were fumbling around with the lock. And guess what happens? For Christ's sake, your business literally revolves around torturing people and then releasing them back into society. Forget target rifles. Everyone here should be strapped at all times in case of class reunion. Eventually, Jordan gets tired of waiting and decides to take matters into their own hands. But before they can get a hold of one of the rifles, the sound of someone approaching sends them scrambling for a nearby closet. Oh, look, it's Cora. Only she's not looking so good. Props to Jordan for catching that scream before it gave away their position, especially once Ethan Hawke starts waving his Smith & Wesson around. Given the nature of the last exchange, there is no way he'll believe Jordan didn't have something to do with his wife's makeover, and that probably turned out bad for their health. That said, dude's no Dirty Harry. I mean, he literally can't hold onto a revolver to save his life, and judging by the impending face reveal, things are not going to go well for him.
You don't remember me, do you?
No shit. Molly was a murderer this whole time. Or was she? Turns out the real Molly was a lady that got murdered in her car when this whole nightmare began. This wide-eyed lunatic's name is Angie, and evidently she was a victim of this very conversion camp many years ago. And you know what that means? They hired someone to work the infirmary in Torture Town without so much as seeing their face first. I mean, I get onboarding's getting less personal these days, but given the secrecy involved in this operation, you should probably be damn sure who you're bringing into the fold. Oh well, it's not like Hawke will have to worry about that much longer. Although, the way she's stupidly circling away from the gun he just dropped, it might still be anyone's game. Just then, Angie wraps up her windy villain monologue and goes in for the kill. But little does she realize, she's not the only one hiding their true identity. That's right, Ethan Hawke was actually Kevin Bacon this entire time. Using his special footloose powers, he turns the tables on old Stabatha and launches into a full-blown strangling. The tables turn again though. Jordan emerges from their hiding space and holds him up with his own gun. Thinking she's finally won, Angie plays on Jordan's anger to try and Palpatine them into squeezing Trig and ending this horror show once and for all. But they're pretty much just like, nah, and lays the iron back on the desk. Unfortunately for Mr. Bacon, his former student isn't quite as forgiving.
Respect, renew, rejoice, revenge!
Dumb. Stupid, dumb, -1 out of 10. I mean, I knew she'd have a hard time topping Gabriel's cookout, but this was just ridiculous. First of all, she took a massive leap of faith assuming that first blow would knock the gun out of Kevin's hand. Were it not for all that popcorn he'd been eating, he and Jordan would be ripping off Angie's newly ventilated mask like Scooby-Doo right now. She should have just posted up in the office after killing Cora and ambushed him when he came looking for her. Bonus points if she found the gun first and spun around in his desk chair all like, looking for this? Then there's that awful one-liner. My god, might as well have stuck with a classic like, see you in hell or screw you, Benny. Anything would be better than that mess. And finally, there's that hackneyed hunter becomes the hunted BS she pulled with the rhino's horn. As if we haven't seen something like that a million times before. Of course, all this is beside the fact that had she kept her mask on and her mouth shut, she probably could have gotten away with murdering 6 people. Naturally, after watching that dumpster fire unfold, it's no wonder Jordan shoots down Angie's proposal to go Trotskying the rest of the world's conversion camps Army of Two style. After all, who would want to join up with someone with such a ham-fisted approach to revenge? As the killer looks on in shock and disappointment, Jordan leaves her to her fate at the hands of the police, calmly strolling out the front door and back to her newfound friends. But before we wrap this one up, you're probably wondering how the cops rolled in when there was no cell service. Well, it turns out that a bunch of the students walked back to town after that whole split up thing, meaning they were only about a 10-minute walk from civilization this entire time. Let that sink in. In the end, it seems no one but the counselors were in any real danger. Well, unless you count being brutally electrocuted as part of some draconian conversion ritual. That said, the kids should have hit the road as soon as they were coerced into LARPing Old Yeller. And as for the hosts, once the bodies started piling up, Hollow Man and wife could have easily stayed alive if they just stuck together, and for that reason, I think them was beaten. Moral of the story: if you're going to torture someone, you'd better be sure to kill them afterwards. Gamersupps nerds, have you ever wondered what it would be like if Gordon Ramsay was operating the kitchen in the tail section of Snowpiercer? Sus Snacks are a sustainable food bar with 8 grams of cricket protein that tastes like marshmallow Rice Krispies. Better tasting than the malnourished weak, but I hesitate to give it higher marks than babies. Overall, I'd say Curtis would approve. Use my code UNBEATEN to get 10% off.